other places, but I won't need it. You may not need it. This is the crusher. Oh, and it also shows us being in production by the end of the year. You know, I anticipate that if everything clicks just right the way we plan this out, we should be able to pour our first bar in December.
First bar in
December. Yeah, it'll be towards the end of December of this year. So it's going to be tight.
Can you send us a picture?
You betcha. It'll be on the site. It'll be all over the place. You can imagine. That's going to be a major announcement. I mean, we'll actually get to start doing our grubbing and mining sometime in late September.
So what actually happens? So you pour that bar. What happens from there?
We ship it to either like Johnson, Matthey, or Engelhard, and you can either sell it or have your metal returned. But they actually refine it and split the two, so you can get silver and gold separate. We don't go through that process. For us to do that, the equipment to do it and everything would cost more than it would be worth for us to do it. But we do in the future have, we talk about it, and I'll tell you this, we may have some of that metal come back to us and make Comstock coins. Yeah. Commemorative coins.
So you think you'll be moving in September?
September, October, I'll be moving dirt. It takes about 60 days before you actually start getting production out of that heat. So
you wouldn't mill that? You would be moving dirt that wouldn't be milled?
No, it won't be milled. It's just going to be crushed and put on the heat bleach.
But your crusher isn't due online until October, right?
Yeah, but I'm building stockpiles ahead of the crusher. That's one thing you have to know. This mine has had a history of high clay, and they didn't manage it well. And the way to get the clay through the crusher is you got to blend it with rock. So I'm going to mine a lot of the hard rock and keep that in a pile, big pile. So when I get into the high clay, I can blend the two so it crushes well and goes through the process better. But I'm going to build stockpiles. I mean, the idea is to build stockpiles so that if the crusher, if anything happens to the mine, we're not shut down. We're still running off the stockpile. We build buffers. We call them buffers. We build them throughout so that things won't shut us down. I'll have an extra loader. So if one goes down in the mine or the crusher, that loader will go over there and fill in. We've got everything planned so that we're going to be able to maximize our equipment. But like the new permits, the new permits were currently permitted at 400 tons an hour. It's going to be 1,000 tons an hour. That's what the new permits are. I'm not going to be running 1,000 tons an hour right off the start, but it gives me that opportunity.
Are the old haul trucks being used?
No, those weren't ours. They're gone.
What size haul trucks are you looking at? So two different sizes?
60, 70 ton, in that range right now. Caterpillar 773 to 777s in that range. Looking at some 60-ton Terex trucks, about that size range. This is our crushing plan, a schematic of it. The crushers, like I said, we did buy that new. That's being built. It's due to be delivered. All of it should be on site by the 1st of October. It's not going to all come on the 1st. It'll start coming in September. It's being built as we speak. Rated at 1,000. It's capable of 1,000 tons an hour. And so that's what we modified the permits to.
Does that require a pad or
No.
permanent installation, or can you move it around?
It could be moved. We have to permit where we're putting it, and that's why we showed it on that map. That's where it's going to be. It's actually going to be on frames and some of it on wheels. We'll take the wheels off, of course, but no, it is going to be able to be moved in the future.
This crush plant will probably be, I don't know if this is the elevation, what's the height on that whole thing?
From here, it's 25 feet, 4 inches, 4.5 inches to the
Right,
top.
so it's a large equipment.
Yeah, it's good size equipment.
It's good size, and we'll have a control panel that is elevated also, so the operator can sit up there and see everything that's going on. We'll have start switches.
Turn that on. Yeah, he's actually on the other side of this bell, man, but he's going to be sitting in an office type thing, control room. Be up on stilts way over on the side. And then there'll be a person on the ground running around doing things too.
Even running this is very
simple.
sophisticated, because you have to start each of the engines sequentially.
Yeah, well,
this is a power drain, soft start with an electrical
And we'll program them to do that on their own. So when you hit the first one, once it's going, the next one starts, and the next one starts. And it works its way backwards. You always start from the end to the front. So if there's anything on the belt, you don't bury it with anything.
And this is currently a two-stage crusher. We've got a primary crusher. It's a 54-inch jaw, is that right?
No, it's a 55 wide, but it'll take 24-inch rock.
Okay. And then a cone crusher is a secondary crusher. And we'll get the rock to nominally a minor 1.25 inches.
Yeah, the crusher itself, the primary jaw crusher, well, is capable of about 800 tons an hour. And so you say, well, if you rated the plant for 1,000, well, that's because there's a wobbler feeder, it's called, in front of it. And so it pre-screens the stuff before it goes to the jaw crusher, so the fines will come out, and that has to be included in your overall tonnage. And so, I mean, if I get 400 tons an hour of fines, I can only put 600 tons an hour into the crusher. I'm limited to that 1,000. But the reason you put that in front of the jaw is to get some of that clay out of it. So, you know,
Well, you were saying the process before that, you go, it kind of splits off undersized and oversized. So, is it just your experience to say I'm gonna crush it to this size?
no, it's all the reason the inch and a quarter size for leaching. That's all based on test work. That's all metallurgical test work. They did all different size ranges, and actually, if we crush it to all minus ½ inch, we get about 1% increase in recovery. That's it, from inch and a quarter. So it costs you more to get that little bit of recovery than it's worth, which is good news because then we'll go to inch and a quarter, which is we can put a lot more tonnage through that same crusher.
What will be the head count for the startup?
Total employees at the mine site probably about 60, somewhere in there. And that's including the 20, 30 that are already there. So it's won't be a lot at the start, but if we get 2 to 4 operations going, we can start a few. And you already got into that part, so you didn't know what the next slide was, but I'm open for all questions for you. I designed the talk to kind of give a general overview without going into too much detail, but I'm available for questions right now, so fire away.
So you already know, I would think, whether it's going to be difficult to leach or not.
What's that?
You already know where areas are that are going to be difficult to leach.
Yeah, so far we haven't found any of those.
So when you do the drilling, you're also testing for leaching?
Yes. Yeah, we're using McCullough Labs in Reno right now. We do our test work. Eventually we'll do that ourselves. We'll have our own lab. We can do all that leaching ourselves.
So it doesn't give us any limitations now?
Not so far.
To have them do microsurgery on the...
No, so far. They had not done the high grade. That's where I was a bit concerned. There was kind of an assumption that the high grade would have to go through the mill, or a mill. And I said, well, not necessarily, because nobody's been able to pan any fines out of it, so that means it's extremely fine gold. And that's what you want for leach. If you can see the gold, it's not going to leach worth a darn on a heap leach pad. That's when you have to have a mill and have agitated leach to get it. Otherwise, they'll sit there for years and you won't get it all. But because we have not been able to pan out any gold out of the high grade, and there's no visible gold, it may leach really well. So that I put that into the lab at McClellan's for test work a week ago. We should have the results towards the end of this week or first part of next. Went through a bottle roll leach. That's where you take the stuff and you literally put it in a bottle with your cyanide solution and you tumble it on rollers. And that gives you the absolute most optimal leaching you can get, or highest recovery you're possibly going to get. So if that comes out at 30% recovery, you know you're in trouble, because you're not going to do that good on heap leach. But if you get 80% recovery, you're probably going to get 60, 70 on the heap. You know, so what you do is you'll take, that's the first test you do, and you do it for 96 hours. They pull samples 6 hours, 12 hours, 18, 24, then every 12 after that. And then you map it out so you can see how fast it's leaching up. And so if it leaches really well, then we'll take columns, just long pieces of pipe, fill that full of that same ore, another ore sample, and you drip the cyanide into it to simulate the heap leach. And those you'll typically run for a couple of months. And that'll tell you how the heap is really going to